These are 13 things you should never do in Apex Legends, so let's go. Number 1, never land directly on your teammate and then proceed to loot the same path as them. I don't know if players do this because they're scrolling TikTok on their phone, or because they're trying to troll their teammates, or they just don't know any better. But if you're not Jumpmaster, it's your duty to break off upon landing. You definitely want to land near your teammates, but not on top of them. And this can be kind of nuanced at times, because if you're landing in a big building, then most likely it'll be okay to split the building up with one or maybe even both of your teammates. However, you don't want to be looting one another's exact path. If you're taking a contested drop, this rule still applies. Ultimately, it'll boil down to each individual area that you're landing in and where the enemy team is also landing at. By and far though, you want to break this habit of fighting your teammate over the one weapon you've both found, because it's not only going to aggravate both of you, but it's going to set you both back in terms of this fight that you're going to take shortly after landing. And even if you're not contested, it's still a bad habit, because then it's taking you guys probably double the amount of time it should normally take you to loot the area that you land in. Number 2, never drop into a match without free looking. This is a bad habit to get into and ultimately will wind up getting you killed a lot of the times. If you know nothing about your current surroundings in a battle royale game off of drop, then you're already setting yourself up for failure. Any team that lands near you and free looked around will then have an advantage over you. You want to free look so you know how many teams are coming with you, more specifically where they are landing if they are landing next to you. By also free looking, you may see a player who is isolated away from his squad mates. And by doing this, you can quickly grab a weapon or two and see if you can capitalize on that player being out of position. There's so many pros to free looking around, and there's really no cons to doing it. Some people will say, well, I'm the jump master, it's not my duty to free look. That's not true. And some people will say, well, I don't know how to drop and free look at the same time. Well, this is sort of a skill you're going to want to develop, especially if you mostly solo queue in Apex. You're not going to be able to rely on your random teammates to tell you what's going on around you guys or what they even see in the dropship. Number 3, if you're knocked, never talk too much when your teammate is trying to clutch up the fight. What I mean by this is calling out helpful information about the remaining enemies is definitely something you want to do. But going on about how you died in some unfair way around a corner, or blabbing about really anything that doesn't directly correlate to helping your surviving teammate with the necessary info at hand, then don't be talking. We've all been guilty of this at one time or another, but it's honestly a huge distraction to be dealing with for the teammate who's trying to focus up and win in a disadvantaged situation. So if you get knocked, all you have to say is which legend you hit and for how much, and maybe what armor that enemy was on too. If there's also a third party coming their way, that could also be helpful info, but only if that threat is imminent. They don't need to be hearing about some team that's 50 meters away when they're in a 1v1 with a guy in their face and a Mastiff. The information you relay to your teammate should be relative to what they're dealing with in that moment. Number 4, never pick up a weapon and then immediately holster it without letting it complete its setup animation. This will be most common for off-drop situations or when you swap a weapon out of a death box, but this will get a lot of players killed as they pick up a new weapon and immediately holster it. Because then when they do come across an enemy, their gun is still doing that animation while their opponent is already shooting at them. Seconds matter in a game like Apex, and if you don't know what animation I'm talking about, for instance, the wingman spins on your finger, the peacekeeper cocks one into the chamber, each weapon has a setup animation, and you want to make sure that it's completed before you go and holster the weapon. Number 5, never drop late onto teams and try to punch them out. This probably sounds fairly obvious, but it still is very much a thing in Season 15. I think players do this because they aren't thinking at all or they feel like it's their only option, but trust me, it's not, and this is a terrible strategy. And if you've done this and it's worked out for you, just understand that's going to be the minority of situations. Most of the time, the enemy will already have a weapon and will absolutely decimate you because you're lunging forward and you don't even have a gun and you look stupid. Number 6, never make assumptions about what your random teammates are thinking. This will probably wind up getting you killed in the majority of times, because instead of assuming your teammates will make the right play or do the right thing in moments that you're focused on them, try to think and look at what they're actively doing and then focus on the most probable outcome that is there. In other words, just try to be more conservative around what you think they're going to do. Err on the side of caution. Most random teammates will let you down. That's just how it goes. And it may not necessarily always be their fault. It could just be because you guys are not used to playing with one another, you're not communicating, on and on. The point here is err on the side of caution, because by doing so, you should set yourself up for more of a successful time while solo queuing. Number 7, and this is a huge one, and you guys really better listen up here. Never be that type of player who only opens their mouth up once they've got knocked just to trash talk their own teammates. Take some accountability if you're the one getting knocked. And even if you died when you thought your teammates were close to you and were gonna help you, they are random, so you can't always expect them to do the right thing. Regardless, they owe you nothing, and it's not on them because you died. Take some accountability, learn from your mistakes, and just keep your mouth shut if you're not gonna say anything that's helpful to the teammates who are still alive and maybe trying to win that fight. I can't tell you how many people do this in the Apex community, and although me pointing this out in this video isn't gonna change them, it's still something that I encourage every player that I come across not to do, because you can be better than those people. Number 8, never run off alone and try to take on a 1v3. Look, let me preface this by saying I understand wanting to be aggressive in pubs, maybe sometimes ranked too. But some people literally go about this with no intelligence. I would say 7 out of 10 games while solo queuing, one player on my team runs way too far ahead to engage in a fight, only to get absolutely put down, leaving me and my random teammate either in a 2v3 or sometimes even a 1v2 if it's duos. Not to mention, Apex has changed, guys. Players are better. There are a lot of pre-made squads sweating it out. You will rarely be able to pull off a straight up 1v3 fight, if ever. And it's typically not because of skill. It's because the enemies you're fighting just outnumber you. And it's a hand you usually can't beat if they're playing close enough. I've talked about this in previous videos, but it seems to just get worse every single season. I don't know if people are watching Fade and Ace You and thinking that they're them, but you're not that guy, pal. Okay? You're not that guy. Number 9, never swing out of cover before you've reloaded your weapons. Always try to be reloading behind cover and then swing out once it's completed. There's a couple examples where this could be okay to do if, let's say, you're chasing an enemy who's clearly just trying to run from you and they're already weak. If it's very unlikely that this player will turn around and then try to shoot you, then you can most likely forget about reloading behind cover. But basically every other time in Apex, always try to reload behind cover and only swing out from that cover once your gun is reloaded. If your gun isn't reloaded, then it obviously can't shoot, so you never want to be in line of sight where you'll be taking free damage from your enemies and giving them an advantage where you otherwise don't really need to be. Number 10, never leave open mic on with all of this background noise going on. Not only is this going to be a distraction for your teammates, it will probably result in them muting you, and then that's not particularly good if you're going to actively try to make callouts during that match. Just be conscious of if your mic is on and what sort of noise is coming through it. If you're blaring your phone or you have a bunch of people talking in the background, your teammates aren't going to appreciate that, and they're just going to instantly mute you. If you're in a ranked match and you are preparing to make a bunch of callouts, well, you got to be thinking about these things. And although a lot of you guys aren't doing this, it still happens to me and my friend often. So that's why I'm pointing it out in this video. Number 11, this is an almost, but almost never hip fire the Mastiff. It's nearly always better to ADS with this weapon in 99% of situations. The Mastiff has a built-in choke to it, but it's different than the Peacekeepers. It will condense the bullet spread, and typically ADSing with it makes it more effective and easier to use, netting you larger hits with this weapon. You can hip fire this weapon in last resort types of situations, like you already know this enemy is very weak, and maybe they're jumping around or sliding at you and it's sort of throwing you off. Hip firing here isn't the worst thing to do, but by and far, ADS with this weapon. Number 12, can we stop instantly leaving matches as soon as we get knocked? Like if your teammates are actively fighting and there's a chance they may clutch it, you gotta wait and see how that plays out. I do understand leaving if you're all the way alone for whatever reason. I'm not gonna knock you if you're gonna dip out of a match there. But I swear, some of y'all are leaving when we are clutching up the fight, sometimes even for the win too. This makes you look foolish when you leave, and it severely ruins the Apex experience when teammates do this. So just wait a few more seconds and see what your teammates are capable of. Number 13, don't loot your teammates' death box if they're planning and able to get back to it. Obviously, you can take stuff from it if it's in the heat of the moment and it's the difference between you staying alive or dying. But if you don't absolutely need their armor swap or some of their ammo, leave it for them in their box for when they come back and get respawned. They're gonna need something, and that respawn is probably gonna draw attention to whatever just went on. Most people are more mindful of this these days, but it still happens to this day. Players are just deep into the death box, grabbing whatever they want, and they're just clueless to whose death box is whose. And we gotta stop that. All right, so now you should have good etiquette in Apex, but you're gonna need these 5 tips if you wanna rank up in Season 15. Check out this video next. Thanks for watching. Peace.